Hello, my name is Francis Fox. I'm a trained remote viewer. All my psychic skills have been developed and watched. And I have watched myself for the last 30 years to see how I can apply what I learned under military and stressful circumstances to the real world and to the business world. Turns out that I'm not going to do any love readings because everything I learned gets thrown out the window. Why? Because emotions are what determine everything ultimately. Now, in the business world, they tell you leave your emotions at the door. They used to say that. Now they have human resource departments, etc. But um, I don't do love readings because chances are I'm going to be wrong because people make choices when it comes to love, which is not what they really want to make, but it's a choice they think that they should make. Interesting. So today is a very important day. Today we have traveling around the country somebody that was in charge apparently with the UFO program, Lou Elizondo, who seems to be very respectable. He's certainly been set up to reach the masses with all of the publicity on his book. And I think this is kind of like a preamble. I think on Friday there were incredible sightings in California in terms of spaceships. And I notice a lot of people are not going, "Oh, why, you're so dumb, you believe that." They're not doing that anymore. I think they've just moved to the back of the bus. They're sitting quietly to see what it is that plans out. So I think that his rounds of the media are getting people ready for whatever it is that's going on that has already been going on. It's fascinating because the bad ETs have been here for a long time and they enter through portals, as a lot of you are familiar with the word portal, which means a hole in the Higgs field. And now there's no longer order because whatever wants to come through comes through. The Higgs field is grids, layers and layers of grids. So nothing can just sweep in and out. It has to go systematically through those little squares because all those grids are aligned. But when there's a portal is when there's a hole in those grids and they can rush in however it is that they want. So our children and a lot of adults who play a lot with electronics or work full time in electronics or in places that are heavily radiated, which basically is going to be all of society within several months, have a lot of portals in their head that have been used by the bad ETs. One of their symptoms is a restless leg syndrome. Another one is when the children and people just completely change personality and they become very aggressive. Or if they're female, they may lose all of their energy and vitality. They're actually using all of their energy to keep down their rage, the augmentation and suicide, the really bad dreams in which spirits, which are not really dreams, it's real, it's just on the astral planes, are telling the children that they're going to kill their parents or that they should kill their parents. All this stuff has been going on. And it's due to portals in the Higgs field. And the Higgs field portals have been opened mainly through frequencies. And it's a huge problem and it's going to become bigger. But getting back to what we're supposed to be discussing, which is interspecies communication. Um, First, I'm going to give you the gossip or the news or rehash news, and then we're going to go into the interspecies communication. I wanted to put up the music that Mateo Cuaron had composed for Venezuela that's called Embracing Faith. And it's a wonderful piece, which I have put on for you already several times. And I ran into a podcast that I did that's called ETs and Telepathy. So I decided I would run that today, being that Ilan Elizondo is making his rounds having to do with ETs. Well, it turns out that that's not what that was about. And that's why I'm going to stop putting names on my chats because I can never manage to stay on the subject or to even address it. Okay. But when I was listening to it, I heard something that completely knocked my socks off, but it shouldn't have been news to me because I was the one who said it. But I wasn't really saying it from me. I had asked during one of the mantra sessions, I had asked the dolphins about why Texas was getting so beaten up, having to do with those two pyramids that made that X over Texas. That uh, me and the Mantrista movement, we worked a lot on clearing the land, clearing any old traumas that could be there. So whatever new came along, at least it would just be whatever new came along rather than a big black hole that was left there from the Battle of the Alamo. That was one of the things we cleared. Okay. And I asked the dolphins, what was the big deal with Texas? Why this beating up of Texas? And I said this on I think it was the 23rd of July, and I did not remember saying that. But that is one of the things about being the kind of psychic that I am. Our training is very tough. And when we're doing readings, we're not there where your memory is in the mind. We're someplace different. And we're not supposed to be enfolding that information into our memory. That takes breath and time. And I did not enfold this information. So, what did the dolphins say when I asked them, why was Texas getting such a beating, which is still getting today? And they said that Texas would be the home of the new order in business in the world because of Elon Musk's presence there. The way he does business, coming from the heart, doing something that he is doing for the betterment of humanity, taking care of others, the way he does business is the new order. So when they talk about the new world order, there is going to be a new world order because the old order has collapsed, which is based on hierarchy, and you work for 40 years, you get a watch at the end of the 40 years. That's not the case today because nobody can work past 15 minutes, but that was the paradigm. Not anymore. But the person who's going to anchor that paradigm is Elon Musk and his incredible businesses in Texas. Yes, I know he does a lot of business in Florida. I was shocked because I had been looking for that answer for months. I got the answer, and my mind was like a sieve. Mm. And I know that happens to all of us. I have an excuse, but still, we can't. It's the volume of information we're all having to deal with is too much. It's just too much. So we need to make plans to spend a lot more time in nature and a lot more time being thoughtful rather than simply taking in information, which is what we do when we spend hours a day on social media and we're reading and we're reading and we're reading and it's really feeling really good. But what are you doing about integrating that with the information you already had and the information that you now need to throw out because now you have updated? We need to have time to think and we don't have it. But that was the one important thing I wanted to say today. Elon Musk is the face of the new order in business. And that's why Texas got so beat up and continues to be beat up. So, congratulations to the United States because he is one of us. Okay, we are right on the cusp of ET landings, ET negotiations, ET invasions. And I'm going to say a story and then explain to you why I'm saying the story. In the 90s, I woke up one day and no, actually, I went to touch my son's arm and all of a sudden I saw his arm wasn't his arm. It was that of a dead person. I was, oh my God. And I knew it wasn't that he was going to die. So I asked my psychologist friend, what could that be? And she said, well, a lot of times when you don't sleep, and I had just actually come back from Europe and I hadn't slept for 7 days. I guess it reminded me of when I lived in Europe. Some old memories come up. Anyway, I opened up a floodgate of memories having to do with my training as a mind control victim. And it was not great. And I complained bitterly. I mean, I was like the biggest victim in the universe. I told my sister how my therapist said they had never heard of a more horrifying story. And they all believed me and they all discussed with each other what to do with me. And she said to me, you chose this. And I looked at her and I said, listen, I am not so dumb. Actually, I'm supposed to be pretty bright. Why on earth would I ever choose that horror that I have lived? And that's cost me a ton of money to heal from. I still do therapy. She said, you chose it. And I said, that's not possible. And it took me several years before I accepted that we are master of our destiny and we choose everything that happens to us. We have subconscious intentions that we're not in contact with, so we don't know. I chose that in order to be able to do this that I'm doing today. Okay, so why am I telling you that story? To talk about me again? No, I'm telling you because whatever enemy you have today is there to position you for something you want. So let's go to the Trump Kamala Harris situation. My God, why does Trump need Kamala? Why does Kamala need Trump? Why do they need each other? What is it that Trump can learn from this that will make him an even better president, an even better commander in chief, an even better everything? And why does Kamala need this with Trump, where there's obviously such a huge gap? I don't know in terms of either one of them why they would need what it is that they've been through and what they're going to be going through next. But I can say that if you want to be a master of your destiny, if Trump wants to be a master of his destiny, if she wants to be a master, they both have to ask, why did I need this? And then stop with the hatred and then try to take down each other and figure out on their own what it is that they need, make the self adjustments. It might just be an awareness and keep moving forward. You only have a problem if you need it, including the death of someone important. Well, that's hard to believe. Illnesses. And the other story about the old lady that had cancer when I was taking care of her grandchild. And I asked my masters, why? The family already has enough misery. And they said, no, no, she chose this because she knows that the kid is a brat, in addition to having whatever issues he had that were very genuine health issues. And she chose to have cancer but not die of it in order to take attention away from the kid so that there could be some self correcting. And that was the way it was. Attention was taken away from the kid. He had to wait for things, which did not have to wait before. She didn't die of cancer. She recuperated and everything was fine. And they trolleyed on with life. So, why did she get cancer? To help the child. Not to help the family, to help the child, because the child his life would have been more difficult if, on top of everything else, he was impossible to be with. No one would have wanted to take care of him. So, why do we need this political situation that we have today? Why? I don't know. There was one particular president got elected, and I was like, oh my God, how could we do this? And then it was like, I think maybe we need to have this put in our face that this is what we've been accepting very subtly, and now it's right in our face what it is that we haven't taken care of. And that's a lot of what's going on today. So, whatever problem you have today, why do you need it? Why do we need that ultimate confrontation in Jerusalem? Jerusalem is where this is the first significant portal that opened on the planet. Now, portals bring in very powerful energy that can be used for good or can be used for bad, but it takes everything to a very high level, much higher than what the planet's used to. So we had three major religions that were born there underneath that portal. Now, there's a portal, I believe, in Chicago, which is a portal to darkness. We can see the numbers in terms of the shootings. And please, God, help me with my intention that the Democratic convention is not there. Is it in Chicago? I don't know. I don't know why I thought perhaps it might be. Um, that portal, you can see the evidence just from the violence that is there. But you have to, this is the point, because of the whole thing with the ETs landing or invading or a version of both. Remember, there's all sorts of ETs. This is where you need to align with your mastery. That you didn't know you had, that was denied to you, that you have a hard time dealing with, that you think is silly because you might end up seeing Anubis, the Egyptian god, and that doesn't make any sense. It only doesn't make sense if you have if you do life in like a little box with these little dividers between time in which there really aren't those dividers. You do have a death and a birth, and then there's a veil goes up and you don't remember the past lives, but it's a memory veil. It's not a block to the flow of time. And time doesn't exist in the other dimensions anyway. So it's an awful lot of stuff. Okay. So the Democratic Convention is in Chicago, and Chicago has a huge portal, which he said has for years. But there you go with the whole thing frequency match. We pair off at the level of our dysfunction, and we buy homes and choose offices at the level of our dysfunction, and we choose where our convention is going to be at the level of our dysfunction. All of us. I don't think there hasn't been a Republican. It was the Republican convention was a couple of weeks ago, right? I don't remember where it was. I'm dealing with an awful lot of things, and I am a little bit, and I'm in the middle of a move, but still, I'm getting a little bit concerned about my memory. So, wouldn't it be sweet? Would stop using energy directly weapons at me. It would be really nice. Yeah, I know. You couldn't care less whether I think you're sweet or not. So, where you live is also the whole thing with we pair up at the level of our dysfunction, where you live also. Miami is a city as Scorpio, so people that are Scorpios would do really well here. Scorpio has to do with resolving karma for everybody else, and Miami has done that through 2 or 3 elections. The issues with ballots, I think, started with those Chads on the ballots in Miami 2 or 3 elections ago. I think it was the 2000 elections. That was more than 2 or 3 elections ago. So Miami is Scorpio and resolves karma. Interesting. Okay. I had sketched the United States and Mexico a couple of weeks ago. This is what I sketched today. And I had sketched these. This is Chicago, I think. I think Chicago. This I just sketched. I'm not thinking, but I think Chicago is right here. That's a spiraling. This is not a good thing. The Republican convention was in Milwaukee. Okay. Don't really know anything, so I don't think there's a huge portal there. So this is the convention. I had forgotten. I need a vacation. Um, I need a break. So this is what the Republican convention is doing. The Democratic convention is doing. It's creating a spiraling um, into the underworld. Literally, I'm not making this stuff up. I didn't even remember I'd done this. Anyway, I did this a few minutes before we started. These lines are the earth moving in the United States and in Mexico, having to do with this earthquake that was in Japan. And then there's been a couple more, and then there's one in Taiwan yesterday or today. I don't remember. But it turns out, I read in the news that the ground in California is moving a foot a week. So we're not here just to present issues, we're here for solutions. And what we did in a couple of our chats, and what you need to do today, as we're doing the session with the mantras, you need to do a visualization of you planting trees with deep roots all over the United States and Mexico. The destiny of the United States and Mexico are totally tied together. It doesn't matter what Mexican feel about the arrogant Americans, and it doesn't matter what the Americans feel about Mexicans. Our destiny is tied together. And that's the whole point with the whole ET invasion, landing friendly, not friendly. Which brings me to the other sketch. I think I need a handler, I need a keeper, I need a secretary, I need something. Sequentially, I'm not holding it together, but let's keep going. So I sketched this. This is our collective consciousness. Now, here we got the raging of the earth, okay? Which is what causes earthquakes and volcanoes. And there you got the waving line, which is not good. So plant trees, even as I'm speaking, just with your head. Just visualize yourself planting trees. We've got the third eye fine. We've got the three pyramids of protection. We've got a spaceship. We've never had it in this position. This is the leg that's helpful friends. Isn't that interesting? The spaceship is close to it. The door is open, and there are words. Hop in. This is stop fighting. The energy is stop fighting, and you must stop fighting. There's an enemy at the door, but the door is up there. It's not the Republicans, it's not the Democrats, it's not the woke people. It's not. You need to get that. That is why Jesus Christ says, don't judge. And all, in Buddhism, don't judge. You don't know what's going on. You don't have the whole picture. People are trying to give you the whole picture, but then there's other people trying to mess it up, and there's other people that are messed up. So what they give messes you up further. We can't continue with the fighting. We have to at least be quiet. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all hold hands? And then if I don't get to the ET interspecies communication, then you won't know what you're supposed to do. So let me continue. Hop in, spaceship. Never been this slow. Usually up here. What does this remind me of? When Atlantis went under, and Atlantis went under because there was too much of a gap between ethics and technological development. Technological development was here, ethics was here. This gap is where the spirits play. Atlantis had to go under because they were developing things that were not good for humans, and planet Earth is a place where people are supposed to evolve. It's not a place for fiddling around or doing your own thing. The end goal is evolution. Whether you like it or not, that's what the end goal is. And if you have technology that's destroying people's minds, then the game needs to be over because somebody's not playing by the rules. And we've done that again today. So stop with the names, stop with the fighting, hop in. So what happened in Atlantis? When Atlantis went under, lost my train of thought. People started to float up into what looked like clouds, but I later realized were spaceships. They just floated up, chip, chip. And from there, they could look down and see the natural catastrophes that were taking down Atlantis and everything, the waters and the explosions and the whole nine yards. And then we get this today, where the spaceship is already here with us and is saying, hop in. Is that what's going to happen next? At that point in Atlantis, I guess whoever it is that determines that, it was determined we had to come back in and try again, which is what we're doing now. After this, I don't think there's any coming back. That doesn't mean everything is over. That means the game of life on planet Earth as we have known it, and as the Mayans said, the world as we know it will no longer exist. It's not going to be there. What's going to come next? We don't even need to get into that because we need to survive what we have in front of you right now. In terms of, you know what, I never wrote down in my website the protocols for the elections. I will get to that tomorrow. In terms of ET and interspecies communications, it's so pathetically simple unless scientists get a hold of it, at which time they'll start to look at the brain and say this and maybe, you know, why don't we get you injected and that one. You don't need any of that. The original language of the planet was not language. It was telepathy. Original language of the planet. There was no original language. It was telepathy. It was thought, mind to mind. According to the Bible, humans decided they wanted to reach God. Why not? Well, in the age of Pisces, no, you can't do that. You have to be at the bottom of the barrel. There's a pyramid and you can't be getting up there. Those are the rules. Okay, so God knocked down the Temple of Babel and created language, and then people couldn't talk to each other. So how come people don't remember that? They remember the fact that people were bad. Actually, they were curious. And they got set back by language. Language is a setback. That being said, when you have a pet that you adore, sometimes you can look at that pet and kind of know what they're thinking or know that they're thinking about you. They certainly look at you and they know what you're thinking. I remember once I was sitting in the kitchen with my husband. I don't know what we were discussing, and my daughter was around 2 years old, and she was on the door frame. She was leaning against the door frame looking at us. She was like two. And I looked at my husband. I said, she knows what we're talking about, she knows everything. She did. She was a 2-year-old kid, Pisces, very mentally evolved. But the truth of the matter is that all kids do. We, as our kids get older, we set them back. We close doors. We tell them, no, nothing, there's nothing that came out of your closet or from underneath your bed. We deny them the reality. They make a suggestion and we go, where'd you get that from? Come on. What do you think? You're a genius or something? Actually, yes. What's my point? It takes me less than 5 minutes to teach children to communicate, to do interspecies communication with pets. And that whole 5 minutes is slapping them around so that they stop monitoring themselves. I don't slap them around, but just kind of shaking them and say, you're stopping yourself. You know that your dog said something. Well, I'm not sure, maybe I'm copying what the other little boy said. No. What did you hear or think that you heard? Oh, this is what I think, but I think I made it up. No. What did you think? And it turned out that all the little kids could hear their pets within 5 minutes. And again, the 5 minutes was shaking them up for them to let go of their self-esteem issues or their belief that this has to be hard and this is too simple. It's that simple. So how do you start? You start with a pet. Okay? We're talking about you training yourself to communicate with interspecies communication, other species that are already here, guys. Many of them have landed. The government's already negotiating with them. I don't know what's going to be set up for you guys to believe, but not get too upset because, we have to handle this, whatever. You find yourself a pet. It could be a squirrel that comes to steal something from your trees. It could be a cardinal that you feed. It could be a rabbit that comes every day at kind of the same time. It could be your pet. And just have the intention, please God help me with my intention, to miraculously communicate fully. Leave off the word fully initially because that'll stop you, because if it's not fully, then you didn't do it right. Just to communicate. Remembering that the original language of the planet is telepathy. It is not language. That's in the Bible. I did not make that up. I believe it. And I'll tell the story again. During caveman times and later, the cavemen would need to kill some animals for food. The animals in another part of the jungle or the whatever, the mountain, whatever, would know that. So the men would go to the river where the animals were going to drink their water. And the animals would go there, knowing that the humans were going to kill them. It was like a telepathic agreement, an unspoken agreement, a working together. Is that so hard to accept? You can do this, but you cannot start with an ET that shows up on your TV set and he's not at the news station, or an ET that's standing by your bed when you wake up in the middle of the night. That's not the time to start. The time to start is tonight. You have some kind of an animal close to you that you see systematically. And if not, tell God to send you one. And breathe when you're going to communicate. Just breathe. And have the intention of being able to hear what they have to say. and then accepting that that you heard in your head, you did not make that up. The ones of you that are going to struggle the most are the earth signs, Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo, because you're the most controlling. You have to have everything proven on the physical dimension, but you can do it also because it is inherent in all of us. When we're paired off for a long time with our mates, or we have a really, really close friend or a really close sibling, a lot of times we know what they're thinking. You know that. You know that. You've heard so many stories. And then I'm going to remind you, and then we're going to go ahead and do some mantras of the study in Russia in the book Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. It was written in the 60s. And they did a study, and they had Russia's huge, there's several languages in that country. They had a woman in one city speaking a particular language, and another woman in another city who only spoke the language that she spoke. And they did the experiment for them to communicate with each other. They were each in their separate cities, each with the separate languages. And they were able to communicate, and each one of them heard in the language that they understood, which was not the language of the person that was communicating with them in another city. It's simple. It's so much more simple than what we are taught. It's so simple that people had to stand between us and that simplicity, because understanding that simplicity and working with it gives us a lot of power. And again, your instinctive knowing, you have got to start to learn to honor it, because at the rate we're going, we're not going to be able to trust anything, not a word of what authorities say, especially if things get really bad, which they appear to be pointed in that direction in several arenas. So, recapping the news, the reason Texas got two eclipses that created an X was because the new order for business in the age of Aquarius would be founded there by Elon Musk. California, the ground is moving a foot a week. But from the other dimensions, we have been sketching how there are waves of fire element that is moving the earth in the United States and Texas. And the remedy, which helps a lot, is for all of you several times a day, take 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and visualize these huge trees with huge roots growing all across the United States and all across Mexico. Mexico and the United States, our destinies are tied together, like it or not. So let's go ahead, being it that we want to take care of this that I sketched with the earth that is very violent, wanting to explode. The magnum in the center, the envelope that it used to have is broken, it's not working, and it's looking for an escape to the surface. We don't want it anywhere in our zip code, and hopefully it will go to a zip code where there'll be a lot less people and a lot less damage. We have the spaceship that has shown up. So let's go ahead and so you're going to do the visualization, and let's do the trilling music. And the trilling is the frequency of birds chirping, and it's the frequency of the mind strings, which is what creates reality. So let's do that, and give me a second to get the mantra. But you can go ahead and start your visualization of building trees all over the United States. Okay. So I was remembering the cantina in Star Wars with all the different species having a drink together, enjoying themselves after work. And I think we need to remember that. And wouldn't it be nice if we could do that during the elections? Just taking a break, just enjoying spending some time together with somebody who's very different from us. This hating of the opposite is problematic. And this targeting groups of people uh, having to do with hatred is a weaponization of a frustration that people feel. People are very frustrated, but we're supposed to be frustrated in end times because the world that we lived in is collapsing and is not coming back, and we're all confused because nobody really told us about it. At the end of the Bible, they kind of talked about it, but who of us really believed that and who understood? So we're all frustrated. So we are directing that frustration against groups of people. And this is the whole issue of people not being aware. You were a king, a tyrant, a male, a female in other incarnations. You could have been Jewish, you could have been Catholic, Palestinian in another incarnation. And yet in this one, it's like a particular group deserves your hatred, but that's because you don't know who you are. You're a lot more than you think you are. And you're more close to God than you think. And please, God, help us with our intention that you recognize that before you get in control of your superpowers, because that is going to be a disaster. You need to know who you are, widen your lens, and understand how incredibly great you are and how you're inches away from acquiring the superpowers that were in all of those little stories we call mythology, but that were very true. So we will be back. Love you a lot. And thank you for joining me.